There's always those moments when your mom sets you up outside and you're holding your lunch and you have, the sweatshirt on because it's becoming fall wherever you are, and you dread the photo. You dread it. But it's first day back in school, this grade, next grade, 8th grade, ninth grade. You dread it. We don't dread this. And if we could do a photo quickly, we may, because it's exciting to be back with one of the great podcasts that surrounds prospects in college baseball. To be specific, this isn't a college baseball podcast per se. This is about the future of the game. See Nolan Shanawell, our last guest on Amateur Hour, a man who was on our last edition as we wrapped up the school year, who was one of the great stories of the Angels that had so many bad stories this year. That's this podcast. Dani Wexelman, Daron Sutton. This is school year 23-24, episode 1 of Amateur Hour. And my producer, Dani Wexelman, pulled out all the stops. Jac Caglianone is on this show, the Florida star. He joins us. Could be number 1 pick. I've seen mock drafts that have him 8. He is certainly special because he throws 99 as he tries to harness his command. But last year he also hit 33 home runs to lead the nation. And then Nick Kurtz will join us. For a school that is known for pitching, he's known for power. A 1,300 OPS last year. Neither one of these players were draftable. They both would have been first-round picks. I've seen Kurtz as high as 6 in mock drafts going ahead to next year, but they could go 1-2. Dani, you pulled out all the stops on this show. I'm so glad to be back on campus. I love that we posed for our pictures earlier for our moms. It was so cool. You were a little sassy to your mom. Work on that. Man, I'm glad we're back with this podcast.
There's nothing new there. It's New Year, same Dani, sassy with my mom. So how cool is this? If you look back to last year, just a little plug, if you are just finding us, is we had a majority of the first round picks on our show last year. Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz, 1-2, for example, we had them on this podcast. And so now I wanted to get started with a bang. I wanted us to have 2 really big guests. The guys didn't disappoint at all. And I think what's cool is they feel like the next generation of guys who are so developed and are these big personalities already. And you'll get to know them, I think, a little bit better in the podcast. Who are they? Where do they come from? What are they looking forward to? These are guys who I think scouts are already drooling over, but they have been for a really long time for good reason. They should be drooling over these guys. But, Nick Kurtz, you talked about last year College World Series and a really important moment for him that he wasn't able to be a part of because he was hurt and what he went through there and watching Jack go through his Tommy John surgery at Florida and what that moment was like for him, the adversity they've already faced, but they're at powerhouse programs. Wake Forest is about to be on another level, and Florida and Kevin O'Sullivan, it's the standard. They raise the bar every single year, and Jack is going to be two-way for as long as he can. So I was just excited to get these guys to start the year. I wanted us to have our best, our best clothes, our best smiles, everything top notch for the podcast as we get started with this year, which I think is going to be a really good one.
Yeah, both these conversations are great, and also on this show, a little slice of the pie of Perfect Game College Baseball, our streaming weekly show. We like to share that. Hunter Pence is my co-host on that show, and I feel it's appropriate, again, to go top shelf, if you will, a little bit of the conversation that Hunter and I had with Coach Esker of Stanford, a team that now over the last 3 years has gone to the College World Series. And then David Ronsley and I were recently at Jupiter, and if you're looking ahead to college baseball, David Ronsley picked the finest commits and how they performed, and some who maybe have outperformed themselves at the World Wood Bat Association World Championship past arriving on campus. So maybe you get a little bit nervous if you're a college baseball fan because maybe your player is too good now and he may be getting a paycheck come next July. That's our podcast. I have several thoughts on both our prospects. I'll save them for the close. Let's see how you feel, if you agree with some of the thoughts I have at the end. But go ahead and listen to these 2 human beings who've changed their lives in very different ways forever. We're excited to be back on campus. We're excited Amateur Hour is back. And Dani crushed it. 2 amazing guests. Let's go. Jac Caglianone, one of my favorite guys coming through this time, through the years watching it. And I think, Jack, what was fun watching you and a lot of your athletes, and I don't always want to make this a center point for when we talk about time in history, but it is time in history. You, during the summer of 2020, when we all were scared to just go across the street sometimes,
took on a lot of baseball, and you grew and you challenged yourself, and it was at a pivotal point for you. You had one more year at Plant High School. As you look back on that summer of 2020, heck, I even think we gave you an award as the two-way Player of the Year award. Turned out to be prophetic, as given out by Perfect Game. But as you look back on the summer of 2020, you balled at the WWBA. At National Elite, you threw 94. Obviously, a PG All-America. What do you recall about that unique summer, specifically, Jack, as it pertains to baseball?
Yeah, I mean, that summer was definitely a weird time. You go to all those major events and everything had to be kind of spread out. We were in Oklahoma City for the All American game, and honestly, it was a really cool town. It was a cool, just kind of setting for everybody to kind of get around each other. And I didn't really know a lot of the players there, aside from obviously the ones that played on my travel team. But I guess kind of just like the culture that was created and kind of cultivated throughout PG All American, creating a bunch of new friends and all that it was great. I mean, like you said, it was different playing with the masks and having to go through all these obstacles just to get out on the field. But in the end, I mean, it was all worth it.
It's interesting because some great things have been said about you by scouts, some unique articles I've read. That was just kind of the beginning of your adversity and challenges, and there are some real positive ones I want to get to later on in this conversation. When you found out that TJ was going to be what had to happen for you, we're looking now at about a year after that, after you go through that challenging summer. Talk to me a little bit about your headspace, because boy, by the time you came through and put a bat in your hands and had that first at bat the next year in 22, I'm sure there were very challenging times, especially maybe when you were alone, just thinking it through. But tell me about your headspace when you found out TJ was coming and how you planned that you were going to attack it, because he had such a high ceiling, but how did you plan to attack it?
Well, I mean, nobody ever really wants to go through any type of injury like that. It was definitely really sudden. It was right before we got to campus here at Florida, and I didn't really know what to expect coming in as a freshman. I knew that it was something, you're going to have to work on day in and day out with the arm care and the therapy and all that. And my biggest thing was, people always say sometimes you come back throwing harder due to all of, the arm care and the therapy that you do. And I kind of made that my goal. I, wanted to treat my body the best I could. And really just kind of ensure nothing like that would ever really happen again. And luckily, everything was going well, but I also kind of took the time to kind of reinvent how I went about things. I mean, you saw me in high school, my swing then and my swing now. It's changed a lot. And, all that really is credit to Chuck Drolleman at Florida. He's helped me with a lot, on the mental side and the physical side of things. And finally being able to play in 2022, obviously not throwing or doing anything like that, but just coming in and DHing. It was really nice to kind of see, all those like nights alone, working hard, really just trying to get back and help my team win, and having that come to fruition was a really good feeling.
Sorry, Danny, I have just one more quick follow-up. Life goes so fast, man. I'm in the middle of it right now. We're in Jupiter, Florida. The summertime, junior into senior year, goes so fast. You're graduating high school. You're taking tests. You're living life, blah, blah, blah. Life goes fast. To me, having to pause and focus, as you just touched on it, right? You wanted to come back, as one of the positive statistics that threw harder. But I'm going to guess that time where you couldn't play, dude, you had no choice. You weren't allowed to play. And life slowed down for the first time in a long time for you. I can't imagine how beneficial that was. You never would have chosen it, and you didn't want to choose it. But you're talking about the benefits. You're talking about working on the minutia of your swing, not having to go out and working on something in the cage and then hit tomorrow against Tennessee. No, you had a full year. I'm going to guess that whole life moves fast thing, and you got off the fast lane completely as far as gameplay went. Man, you're reaping the benefits for that. It certainly seems like it. Am I reaching there?
No, I mean, none of this could be possible with like the support system that I have, and with how great these coaches are here at the University of Florida. All they've done is really build me up and kind of get me to where I am today, along with obviously high school coaches and all of that. I'm a gamer, there's no part of me that ever wants to sit on the sidelines and just kind of watch everything happen, knowing that I can't really do anything about that. So it honestly just kind of added some fuel to the fire coming back, facing Tennessee that weekend. And yeah.
Along those lines, because we talk a lot about the who when it comes to Tommy John or comes to recovering from an injury, but I actually kind of want to know about the how. How did people support you? What did they say? How did they treat you? What did that look like from your perspective? And however they may have done it, why was that the way that was most beneficial to you?
Yeah, I mean, my parents really, they're there every step of the way. My dad was very vocal with, pushing me through like the tough days, when things weren't feeling great and you're, looking at the timeline of recovery and you're sitting there, you're like, dang, I still have 10 months left of this. How's this going to shape out? What's my role going to be? Am I going to be, just a position player? Am I still going to pitch? And just kind of a lot of, I guess, animosity, not really knowing what was going on. And just really the support staff and like my coaches, they really knew how to get me through every day. I would, play first in the scrimmages before I could throw or anything, and just kind of go through the motions of everything. And really, kind of once I started getting geared up to being clear to hit in game was really when, I guess the anticipation was building. I was really excited to kind of get back out there and do all that stuff, but still being mindful about, I'm still not throwing. I'm still, I just started getting off a mound at that point. So making sure having like the people who would help me keep my priorities kind of where they were. It's like, all right, you're still gonna be a pitcher. You're still gonna do all this. Like, but right now, especially my freshman year, they were like, you just gotta be the best hitter you can be. Like, that's all you can do. That's all you can do. You'll focus on the pitching stuff, before the games or after the games or during practice and everything. But really just kind of, they're just always there. I mean, that's really the simplest answer for it.
I don't know if we emphasize that part enough. I love to hear the who. The who is so important, right? But how did they do it? Because that's a really big mental hurdle, right? You get to school, you have the surgery, you throw out your red shirt, you finished the season hitting, but last season was the first full year of hitting and pitching. And so we got to really see what you have been working on, what you've wanted to be, and how you've wanted to develop for your team, and why Florida was a fit for you. I just want to know, I got to see you in Omaha. I saw you a lot last year. What did you learn about yourself through all the hurdles, all the obstacles, all the ups and downs of your season last year?
I mean, kind of what we talk about a lot, really, as a team and as a whole, is you got to buy into playing for one another. Having 30-something guys in the locker room with you day in and day out, you create like a really strong brotherhood. And having those guys there to push you on your bad days, but also be there to celebrate you on your good days, it kind of just makes everything worth it. You're not going to be great every day. You're not going to have your best stuff every day, but there's 8 other people on the field who are going to pick you up. And just the culture here and the way that we carry ourselves, everybody holds each other to a very high standard. And if we continue to move like that, I think, there's just going to be a lot more success. And it really helps overcoming all those type of hurdles throughout the year.
Interesting. We were talking earlier. I read a great article. I forget where I read it about you, but it was a scout talking about you and basically saying what I love about him being a two-way player for as long as he can. And we look at this as scouts, that he's actually dealing with 2 times the pressure than just a guy who plays short and hits in a game. Fair enough. You could argue that shortstop has some good pressure when he's out there playing shortstop, but he's talking about when you're walking out there as a starting pitcher, you're bearing the game on your shoulders. No matter how that game goes, you're dealing with pressure, and each and every at bat, you're dealing with pressure. Has that pressure galvanized you just a little bit? Look, you basically, I always think about what it would be like to walk in front of a crowd that's as loud as it is in Omaha, where you're the focal point. You're on the mound in the final game. You're hitting homers in the game prior to that one. Has that pressure on both sides galvanized you a little bit to where you've been able to slow things down when you're out there playing?
Yeah, our coaches here, they really preach on slowing the game down. I mean, like you said, you're in those stadiums with loud audiences and a bunch of people there to watch you, and you know, you kind of feel like you have a little target on your back sometimes. But when you realize that you're playing a kid's game and you're just trying to have fun with it, sure, you know, there's more opportunities to fail being on both sides of the ball, but I kind of look at it like there's more opportunities to have success as well. You can go out on Saturday and boot a ball at first and then, you know, go throw 5 innings or 6 innings the next day and nobody even thinks about anything. There's obviously been points where, you know, it's not, I'm not going to say it's a lot, but I'm not going to say like it's not there. You know, like you kind of hear about it, but you just got to push it to the side and just kind of focus on what's like the task at hand. Like, how can I help my team win?
Such an earned privilege. Look, I pitched some mop-up innings in the NAI World Series a million years ago. Like to earn that privilege, to stand on the mound and get to start in the championship game, to have the big game the game before, it's just an incredible privilege. I mean, it's just so like to earn the right to be there is just, it's awesome. It's incredible. So as a pitcher, what are some things that you really focused in on? And you're talking to an old minor league pitcher, not a very good one, but be as descriptive as you want. As you're in the shop, if you will, and you're fine tuning some of the things about your mechanics, about your delivery, what are one or two things from that last game in which you pitched in Omaha until today that you've mentally and physically worked on as it pertains to you as a pitcher?
I mean, that last game in Omaha, it's pretty much like a day doesn't go by where you don't really think about something like that. I never want to be, I guess, the biggest things that I'm trying to work on really is to push myself through innings, you know, work myself deeper into games. Just go out there, relax. You know, we look at the numbers, you know, balls in the zone. People aren't really doing a whole lot off of it. So really just relaxing on that aspect and kind of, instead of trying to be extremely nasty and make, you know, something out of nothing, just like, you know, really just try to let them hit it. Hopefully, you know, it'll fall. The cards will fall where they may, but you just got to pound the zone and go out there and attack. And that's just really what we've been focusing on so far this offseason.
No pitch grip tweakings, nothing on your landing spot, nothing on, you know, anything else, nothing within the minutia of pitching that you've tweaked?
I'm trying some things out here and there and really just throwing a bunch out to see what sticks, but you know, it'll
That was such a
be
non-specific answer, by the way. That was such a non-specific answer.
there's some stuff in the works. You know, hopefully everything will go good. I can't let too
That's
much out now.
He's like, wait and see.
Fair enough.
Wait and
Fair
see.
enough.
We'll wait and see. That's fine. What you can tell,
We'll see what
yeah.
sticks. I love that.
What you can tell us, I know, because you said how your swing has evolved so much. So, like, break that down for us. Like, give us how you started, where you are now, and why that's been the difference maker for you.
Yeah, so on the hitting side of things, for me, it's always been less is more. You know, I've never really had a leg kick. I don't really feel like I need to reach for power to really any part of the ballpark. It's staying short and sweet, and really just focusing on like strike zone awareness. You know, where he's picking up pitches out of hands and kind of just getting a better feel for where my strengths are, rather than kind of giving in to what the pitcher's throwing.
I'm interested too, like after you finish a game where you've played two-way and you've done both, how do you like decompress, or how do you separate your performance on the mound, what you did in the box, maybe if one went better than the other? Like, what is your process post game? Just thinking through everything that's happened and then maybe flushing it. But how does that work for you when you have done both that day?
Well, me and Sully really worked hard at kind of separating the two. You know, it's like if you strike out 1AB, it's you don't need to drag that with you out on the mound, like you have another job to do. And I basically kind of had like physical cues. You know, whenever I'd pick up my pitching glove, it's like, all right, like forget whatever happened. You know, your last AB, you got to get these next 3 outs, and then you know you can start worrying about the hitting side of things. And same thing when I go and grab my bat after the first inning, it's like, all right, I'm a hitter now. You start looking at the charts, like, what does this guy throw? And you get kind of into that. And it was kind of just a good rhythm. really separating the two. It was honestly kind of weird because I think I had more of my multi-home run games on the day that I pitched. So I was more worried about, performing on the pitching side of things where hitting was almost like stress-free.
It is true. It's amazing how those two things work together. What is it like, I mean, strength wise, when you are doing something that involves your legs so much, right? But then when you're in the box, you're using so many different parts of your body, right? It is so mechanical, as well as pitching. So, like, just kind of, if you can, I don't even know if you can verbalize it, but you're coming from the mound, you're getting in the box. Like, what does that feel like for your body?
Towards the end of the year, I was feeling a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, just overall. But when it comes to the game, when it comes to the games, like I said, at the plate, there's not really much movement that kind of goes on with my lower half. So it's really just like keeping everything kind of short and sweet, making sure you're not trying to overdo anything. Really, just keeping it simplified. And on the mound, obviously you exert a lot more energy when it comes to throwing pitches. So it was almost like conserving energy while you were hitting to save some for the tank while you were pitching. And I don't know if that's what really relaxed me or what, but I don't know. It works.
Hey, I'm not going to let you go before we don't give you a chance to lift up your sister. Do we call her Sam or Samantha at home? What do we call her?
We call her Sam. I call her Sammy sometimes.
Sammy played a little bit of volleyball at one point in college. Does she still compete? And tell me a little bit about your relationship. The two of you and Sammy and Jack and the relationship there.
Oh, I mean, it's the typical sibling rivalry growing up. We were always at each other's throats, always messing around and getting on each other's nerves. But really, once we kind of got to high school and we started driving to school together, I mean, we became pretty much inseparable. We talked just about every day. She, whenever she's having a rough day, she always call me. I'll always call her, vice versa, and all that. She's always been there. She's definitely somebody who gives some good advice. And I don't know. I mean, she's like a built-in best friend. I know people say that a lot, but it's nice to have somebody like that you can always talk to with anything.
What a great answer. My sister turns 50 very soon, and she's in the same boat. Always has been that best friend and that communicator. I'm good, D. I love learning. Are you good?
Yeah, I think my last one, I actually just saw this the other day. It is so unrelated, but for the World Baseball Classic, somebody was trying to figure out all the different teams that you could play for. So number one, does that event interest you one day? And number two, what can you name all the countries that you would qualify to play for?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure it's everybody's dream to play in the WBC at one point in their life. I think it's the Netherlands, my dad and his mom's side, um, Italy, Puerto Rico, the USA. I think there's like one or two more in there. I can't really remember, but there's a few. And my dad always asks me, he's like, "So who would you rather play for?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how many. Like, I can't distinguish between how many there are. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Oh man. Well, we will. I know we will for sure. That's all I had. I know Daron and I are excited for your season and what's ahead for you. We've been able to watch you grow up and watch you grow on the field, so it's been a treat. We're really grateful for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I'm gonna start this one, D. I am excited. Nick, you are a part of our first podcast for the 2023-24 season. I know it's fall. I know you're back on campus, and there's so much excitement right now for Wake Forest, for you. I want to start, though, with last year and just the team that you were on, because for me, I think it was one of the most unique teams I've ever had the chance to cover. And not only because of collectively together, but also individually. You all were these different personalities that meshed together. So maybe just take us back for a second, and you've had some time to reflect. What made last year's team so special?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely the bond that you kind of mentioned earlier that we had. Most of us were together my freshman year, which was 22. Most of us were spent time together there, and then building after that season to last year, we kind of all knew each other, added a couple new faces to the team, and we kind of already had our team culture already kind of like put in place at that point. It was just kind of getting those transfers and freshmen on board, and that went as smooth as possible. I mean, we do a retreat every year, and we found out who our identity was that year, and we kind of stuck to it. I mean, each player personally, like, they're a different person. You know, there's not many Tommy Hawks on different teams, not many Rhett Ladders, Teddy McGraw's, all these different guys, and for some reason we all just meshed super well, and it was the most fun team I've ever been a part of, for sure.
Legacy at your team retreat. Yeah.
Yes.
So I read that book, and it's got a really good message. There's a lot of things you can take away, life, sports, whatever it may be. When you read that, because I feel like that's also a key to what you're talking about. When you read the book, what did you take away from that you used last year? Maybe you're hoping to also input into this season.
Yeah, as most of the stuff we talked about a lot was the All Blacks out of New Zealand. You know, their whole story, how they do things there is kind of something we wanted to implement into our team. And I feel like that's something like, you know, we go through our practice and be like, you're not doing something right. Like, would the All Blacks do that? No, they wouldn't. So then that's kind of got us back on track every time. And obviously the name of the book is Legacy. So we wanted to, you know, leave a legacy here at Wake Forest. We wanted to be probably the best baseball team ever to play at Wake Forest, hopefully until this year. And so that's one of those things we wanted to do every single day.
What about the Kurtz men, if you don't mind? A little bit about Dad Jeff, college baseball player, played in Jersey. Brandon was your assistant coach for a bit in high school, older brother. Logan, college baseball player, played at an offshoot campus of Penn State, a secondary campus there. The Kurtz men and their baseball passion, what gives there? There is a ton of it.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember growing up, I had a bat in my hands as early as I can remember. I mean, our passion, each and one of us, was baseball. You know, we come home from school, we're going to go play catch. If we're not playing catch, we're playing wiffle ball in the backyard. It's one of those things that we just were learned, or we just love to do every single day, and we can enjoy with each other. So that was pretty awesome. And, you know, my brothers and my dad are my biggest fans, which is pretty special. And, you know, just seeing them at every game they can get to is awesome.
Story tell. I know they're a little bit older than you with your brothers, but take me into a backyard, whether it's, you know, over the line, you know, there's tape ball, there's something, hit it off the garage, the fence, whatever. I need a non-real game, yet it felt like a real game. Kurtz men competitive battle.
I remember young when I was a kid. It was me and my one brother versus my dad and my other brother. And I remember this one time, I was young, I can't remember, 4 or 5, and my dad's pitching to me. You know, he gets real close because I'm young at the time, and I absolutely smoked one right off his head. And that was the last of those games that we played. That's one thing I do remember.
I love that. I wish there was video of that. We would love to include that in this show. But your description, and I'm sure Jeff remembers. I'm sure he clearly remembers that. I love that. Good. The Kurtz men and their baseball battles. Good stuff, man.
How about Mom in there in part of all of that? Where was
Yeah.
Mom when that was happening?
Mom was making sure I'm getting in, doing my schoolwork. Mom was the person to go talk to about things other than sports. She's like, you know, the best friend in the house. You know, she's one that you go talk to every single day. So that was her role. I mean, taking me to practice, taking me home, doing all the little stuff as well.
I feel like where you are right now and how you've gotten to this point, it kind of all makes sense. I feel like, you know, the fact especially that you're on this team now that, I mean, I feel like the guys from the 2000 season, the 21 season, they really kind of paved the foundation and allowed you to get to this point too. You were part of that. But when you think about your family and you think about where you are now, what would you say have been the defining moments, whether it was getting into baseball, playing basketball, whatever it was, the defining moments to get you to here?
Yeah, I for sure think playing as many sports as I possibly could when I was a kid. You know, trying out everything, see what I loved, see what I didn't, and then what I did love, it made me just as, like, playing basketball, playing football, that made me just as better on the baseball field, for one. And then my decision to go to boarding school my sophomore year was probably the biggest decision I made. It's probably the thing that's helped me the most to get where I am today. You know, just being independent, living on your own, time management, doing your own thing, make sure you get your work in, like, that's one thing I had to learn when going there. I was 16 years old and I was on my own pretty much. And, I knew a couple guys there. Danny Corona was there, obviously, with me. Cooper Kinney, who was a draft pick a couple years ago, had a great year. So those are two guys that, I spent a lot of time with in the cages, on the field. And I also played basketball there, so kind of always keeping busy was probably the biggest thing for me.
Real quick, just to follow up. So the early phone calls, maybe back home to mom, what were the calls for? What did you need the most help with, having to do that all on your own?
Laundry was the first one. Yeah, I didn't know how to do laundry until I got to boarding school, but I had to learn that one real quick. For sure, yeah.
Well, what'd she tell you? How does one do laundry? Well, how is that? How does one do laundry?
Throw a Tide Pod in there, throw your clothes in there, set it for an hour, and then just put it in the dryer. It's pretty much what I do.
Colors? No concerns about colors?
No, I don't know.
No concerns about colors. So there's laundry, and then there's time management, and that's the other thing that's interesting. There are a lot of young athletes that are going to listen to this that want to be Nick Kurtz, that want to be talked about like Nick Kurtz is being talked about in a couple of years, 14, 15, 16 years old, that are falling all over themselves in time management, that they can't break through in time management, that they're maybe getting 4 hours of sleep along with that time management, which is a punch to the chin too. What are some of your tips to time management if I'm a young athlete who has some skill, who wants to be a Kurtz man?
For me, early on, it was kind of like planning out my day the night before. Wake up now, I got to go to school, do my classes, and I'm going to have practice, and I got to do whatever I need to do there, and then I'm going to have a certain amount of time of my own free time. So from right after practice, I'll go to the cage, or right after basketball practice, especially in the winter when I was doing other sports. Right after that, I grab food, go to the cage. I come home and I go back and I do my work, and then I would do that every single day and try to stay on a schedule. That's the easiest thing. Have a routine that you try to do every day. And you're not gonna be perfect. I'm still not perfect to doing it today. It's even harder now. But that was the biggest thing for me, is kind of knowing what I need to do the next day and just getting it done.
It's interesting too, because that time management, you lay the foundation, then it carries into being a man in college. Now you're doing things like this where you have school, you have baseball, and then you have media obligations. So you're right, it adds more and more. I wanted to ask you, one of the last guests we had last school year, interestingly enough, is already in the big leagues, is Nolan Shanawell. And one of the things, the Florida Atlantic hitter, who's now in the big leagues with the Angels like in a month and a half, his big thing was plate discipline. He didn't and never will have the pop that you have, but his plate discipline's even playing at the highest levels right away, which is kind of crazy. For you, I see the same kind of plate discipline. I see a ton of walks, not very many strikeouts. I see a tall guy, so it's not supposed to be that way. They told Freddie Freeman when he was younger, who manages with a big strike zone to still have plate discipline. What are some of the keys for you stepping into the box, facing velo, good spin, that you have grown in plate discipline? How have you grown in that area where you can still do damage, but yet be disciplined?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing in regards to plate discipline is just loading and starting everything early. For me, that's the biggest thing that helps me. If I start early, I can see the ball better. Whatever I'm looking for in that particular at bat, I can kind of just shut everything else out and say early in the. So I feel like I'm a very patient hitter, and I wait for my pitch, and when I get it, I'm going to swing. But I'm patient because I know if I see a pitch once and I see it again, I know where I need. Like if it's a slider, I know that it's got to start here for it to be a strike. If it's anywhere else, it's going to be a ball. So that's kind of one of the things, is seeing pitches. That's the biggest thing for me. Like that's what helps me, is like I'd rather hit with 2 strikes than swing at a pitch that I'm not really sure if it's going to be a ball or a strike. I feel like if you have that confidence with 2 strikes, it makes hitting a lot easier.
Let's build on that for a second. So how have you gotten to that mindset? Like, what's the evolution of, let's say, your freshman year, which you obliterated, and building upon that to remain consistent to get to this point? How has the mindset gotten to what you just said?
So I feel like freshman year, it was more like I don't want to strike out. So like I would take bad swings on balls where I could just put the ball in play, so I could just keep my strikeout numbers low and just do anything I can to get on base. And I feel like last year that transitioned to where like I can still do damage with 2 strikes. I don't need to change anything with just because it's 2 strikes. And having that confidence to know the strike zone and know your umpire, that's one of the things you need to learn in order to do that. I feel like I did a really good job of that last year, especially because like I have a 2-strike approach where like before 2 strikes I have this big leg kick, and then when I get the 2 strikes I go out, I get out wide, And it's one of those things where it just makes seeing the ball a little bit easier, and that helps me personally. It could be different for other people, but that's the biggest thing, I think. Just knowing in my head that I can still do the same damage on an 0-0 pitch than I can with an 0-2 pitch.
We get the pleasure of getting to talk to you before the season has started, and I'm just, just the thought of where you could be, where your team could be, the excitement around it. I know we're going to talk to you come next summer, and it's a big summer for you, and a draft summer and a draft year, and I don't want you to tell us if you've been thinking about it, because I'm sure Daron will ask you that, but I do want to know, after everything is said and done, after you've won the College World Series, because that's the goal, what do you want people to say about you when the season ends and people are talking about you sitting at that draft desk at the All-Star game? What do you want them to say about Nick Kurtz?
I want them to say, I think, that like when they watch me play, that it's different from everyone else. Like, it's one of the things where they see me and like he stands out, sort of. Not in a way like hitting all these homers with the average and the stats, but like the hustle, the defense, the base running, all sorts of different aspects to the game. That's one of the things I take to heart a little bit more. It's because if you're a good hitter, you're a good hitter. You're gonna hit. People expect you to do so, but it's one of those little things that people don't really expect you to do. Those mean a little bit more.
Yeah, great question, by the way. That's a really, really good question. I wondered where you were going with that, and I love where you landed. That's a very good question and an even better answer. You know what I hope they say? Dude played with a broken rib and was better than any other hitter in college baseball. How did you push through that? How did you push through? You stayed in as long as you could. We all know about sides, obviously, and pitching or hitting. If you have an adductor that you pull, you're done. You have an ab you pull, you're done. You have a rib. How did you push through that? How frustrating was it? I'm sure you're strong as ever now, but how frustrating was it? And how did you play through it for as long as you did?
Yeah, I mean, it was super frustrating knowing that like I couldn't help the team like I normally can. But it's one of those things where if I'm at 80% or 60% or whatever I was at the time, like I'm gonna take my bet that I can still kind of get it done. Even in that last game I couldn't really play, but if there was a runner on second base, I'm going in. That's just like kind of who I am. I want to be in the box when the game's on the line. Last game I pulled my oblique also before the game started, so at that point I was like, I'm more of a liability than helping the team at all. So that's kind of the time where I need to like step down, take a step back, and just be like, I can't do this. Like, I'm hurting the team if I do this.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's tough, but then there's wisdom in it. You know what I love, because Dani and I talk a lot in this space. In her New York space, my studio's out here, with athletes that are younger too. So we get you, who's on the precipice of greatness and going on to your dream, great college season ahead of you. But then we talk to, a 14U All-American who wants to be you someday. We have this great range. And I love when you graduated, you were ranked 403rd. You were number 13 first baseman in the country. And I love your smile, because I got not to drop a name, but I sat down with Mookie Betts and had an extensive interview last year, who was ranked 350 when he graduated, and Jac Caglianone, who was ranked 400 when he graduated. I think the thing I like to ask these athletes, when in fact they get to this place, and it's no knock on the scouting, it's no knock on the ranking, it's all there's something to all of it, it's all good. But what advice do you have for the dude who's ranked number 403 right now in his class? Because here you are, in many eyes, you're ranked number 1 as we look ahead to the draft. What advice do you have for the dude who's ranked 403 and knows he can be better?
Just don't pay attention to the rankings. If you have a chance to go play college baseball and you believe that you're the player you can be, go prove it there. Rankings will only get you so far. If you can compete at the highest level, then your rankings will go up. That's it. Yeah, that's simple.
I have one more, because I am dying to know. I watched you in the dugout, not able to play. I mean, I felt for you. I obviously, it's upsetting, but you did watch probably one of the most iconic pitching duels I think that we've maybe ever seen at that level. I don't know how to really rank it, but you were in the dugout. You were in Wake Forest dugout. You had Rhett Lauder, and Paul Skeens was on the other side. So just give me a detail or two, or give me something that stood out from that, because I was just in awe for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, no, that was a crazy game. It even better game to watch. I mean, with Rhett Lauder, that's kind of what we expect. It's kind of bad to say that, but he's proved that he can do that, and we expect him to do that every time. That's what we went in the game with Rhett Lauder. We felt we were going to win every time. And I mean, Paul Skeens is a great pitcher. Obviously, he did what he did last year, #1 overall pick. There's no denying that. So they kind of just did what they did all year in the biggest spotlight, and they deserved all the hype they got.
Awesome. Nick, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was fun.
So as I told you in the beginning, here's a couple of my takeaways, and go wherever you want with this, because I know your mind recollects the conversations far better than mine, and I know you'll touch back to what was said. Let's start with Jac. So if you think about Jac, and he loves being Shohei Ohtani in a sense. I mean, that's almost unfair because he's Jac, with no K, by the way, although there are plenty of Ks when he pitches. Jac, and you look at Shohei Ohtani pre-Tommy John, when Shohei had to shut down just like Jac did, and life goes fast for Jac, life went fast for Shohei. In the big leagues, his OPS plus Shohei pre-Tommy John was 125. That's good. That's way above average. That means he's a really good hitter. Post Tommy John, his OPS plus is 161. That just means that he stopped his life, he took care of his body because of his arm, in Shohei's case, and he's better as a hitter on the other side. It's the same thing for Jac. Travel baseball's a gauntlet. School is a gauntlet. Having a girlfriend in high school is tough. Being a son, being a daughter, all the things that go into being a prep athlete. Then you get to college, and you got that scholarship. Now there's NIL money. Did I get drafted? No. Life goes fast. He had to stop. He had to stop. And he worked on things he never had, and look at the hitter he is on the other side. I'm not suggesting every single hitter in the world run down and get Tommy John, and right away you're going to hit 33 home runs. That's not at all. But I think it's a fit for him. Here's the other thing that's important, Dani, for me, is that Shohei and Jac also showed that when you are shut down, you get under a microscope if you sit on your backside, and you aren't aggressive with changing your body. That's the other part of it. And then for Nick's great. We go this way. You'll hear this on this podcast a lot. We go down the road of, and it's nothing to do with rankings. Rankings are amazing. The job that Greg Sabers does with his team at Perfect Game, Vice President of Scouting. But a player's ranked where he's ranked, and he earns that ranking. Nick Kurtz graduated ranked 403. We get so stuck in the top 50 because that's a PG All-American. I don't apologize for it. It is what it is. But look at what the dude has done with the 403 ranking. Mookie Betts just now knocked out of the postseason. Mookie Betts graduated high school ranked 300. He's one of the best players in the game. He's generational. I love when players, and I know we touched on this, the Pennsylvania boy goes to college and takes college as a chance to grow up and become a dude. Those are a couple of my takeaways on those two guys.
Okay, so starting with Jac. We've known Jac for a long time. He was a PG All-American. Freshman year, Tommy John, they throw out the red shirt. Kevin O'Sullivan's like, we could use you. What do you think? Talks with his family. They needed his bat, and his bat played his freshman year. And so you didn't get to see him pitch. You didn't get to see the two-way talent for a full season until last year. And the hype around him was insane. And when you really break it down, this is a guy who's really young, who's navigated COVID through baseball, getting to campus, an SEC school. Their expectations and the comparisons were every single day. He dealt with those things, for better or worse, whether he welcomed it or not. And I think that he did. I think that he absolutely took the challenge on of being Jack Tunney, or whatever nickname you wanted to give him. But when you really look at it, I wonder sometimes if we were being a little unfair about how much we made those comparisons to him, because he's still got a long way to go. You mentioned some of those numbers. You saw what he did. I think that if, I asked him, I was like, what did you learn about yourself this year? I thought that was maybe something interesting because he was under a microscope. Everything he did, every at bat, every pitch. I was talking to his mom while he's on the mound at the College World Series, and he hits a batter, everything was magnified for this guy. And I think he's so talented, and the bat is so terrifying. He talks about how he thinks he does better at the plate when he's pitching, right? Because you move from next to next. There's no time to break it down. But the best thing that he learned from Sully was how to flush things, and really needing to work on that part of his game. Think about this. Most of us, if we have a bad at bat, we just go back in the field and we're playing on defense. He's on the mound in charge of what happens next. Every single moment revolves around what he does. So if he strikes out with the bases loaded in a big moment, his team is down, he has to go back out. No, none of us have any idea of what that even feels like. So to figure out how to manage that, I think has been a big part of his game. But I think this year is going to be huge for him. I'm interested to see how he's able to build on last year and just being himself. He's such a nice person. He's very thoughtful. I hope that came across in the interview. I think that it did, but I hope that this peeled back a layer for some people about what it's like to be a college athlete. It's very hard. It's very hard. They make it look really easy, but it's very hard. And then for Nick Kurtz, this is a guy too who's been talked about since last year. We were talking about his draft last year, and he had a whole nother year. He has a whole nother season to go. And for him to miss such a big game against LSU at the College World Series, I watched him. He had tears in his eyes in Omaha. I felt really bad for him, but I think he welcomes what's coming for him and for Wake Forest, a really unique club, and Tom Walter and what he's doing there with those guys. They're on a trajectory that is just going up, up, up. And this is one of those guys whose bats is terrifying. He's a huge kid, and he's like a normal kid who I do think has the potential to go number 1 overall next year.
Yeah, Kurtz injured. Caglianone struggling in his last game. Everyone in the entire world that's ever played college baseball would have given their right or left arm or pick an appendage to have been in their shoes with a shot to be there injured or be there and fail. You know, it's like my favorite team, the Dodgers, are done, and peacefully watched it and thought to myself, 26 other teams would have loved a chance to be playing games at this point. Those two dudes had that chance, and they're going to have many more chances. It's wonderful. It's wonderful what they've earned, and it's cool how they did it. Subscribe to this podcast. We need you doing so, because then you'll see it when it drops. And obviously, give us a review. If it's bad, that's fine. We just want a review, and we love your opinions. This is a year of growth for this podcast. You're in all likelihood going to see it places, which is concerning for many of you with my presence. But again, we have like the cool background now. And, for our viewers, this is our 4th season. We're going to get the shop going soon. So keep an eye out for the shop. We're going to have the gear, all kinds of cool gear. You know you want it. But again, stay with us. We're going to be here every 2 weeks, bi-weekly, and the best players in all of college baseball, you're going to get to know them because it's a draft preview. Dani and I, thanks for hanging out with us. And first day of school edition. It was so charming. We really loved it. Daron's first day of school. See you soon.